ahead and start with introductions of the board members. We've got some members of the public here today, so let's go around the table here, and board members can introduce themselves and tell us what jurisdiction or entity you represent. We'll start with that. Mayor Dolan.
Tom Dolan, Mayor of Sandy.
Nathan Rafferty, Ski Utah. Andy Bierman, Park City Council.
Dave Whittakin, Forest Service. Ralph Becker, Salt Lake City.
Calvin Cullimore, Cottonwood Heights.
Peter Bruiser, Wasatch Front Regional Council.
Ivan Marrero, Federal Highway Administration.
Carl Fisher, Seymour Canyons.
Tom Holler, Mayor Town of Alpha.
Alan Matheson, State of Utah.
Justin Jones, Albany Chief.
Mike Allegro, UTA.
Ben McAdams, Salt Lake County.
Laney Jones, Mountain Accord.
So I want to thank everybody for coming today, and especially for the hard work that you've all put in over the last 3 years, but especially over the last 6 months, and even more so over the last couple of months, as we're working to bring people together to a consensus here in the Mountain Accord. And thank Laney for the great work that she's done. She's really been our diplomat and ambassador and punching bag and all of the above. So thank you, Laney, for your great work on this. So there've been drafts circulated, drafts available on the website over the last few months that explain kind of where we are and some fine tuning. And so I'm going to turn the time over to begin with to Laney. There's a mic. I'm guessing it probably is hard to hear, so let's try and use the microphone where possible. We'll try and yell, but we got a mic now, and I'm yelling into the microphone. So great, we had a microphone, that'll help. We'll try and use the mic so that members of the public can hear us today. But let's turn it over to Laney to just go over with a review of the Accord, where we are, some of the changes that have been made in response to public comment and feedback we've received from members of the public and from stakeholders as we move to this consensus. So, Laney.
All right, so a little history on the Accord. We distributed a final Accord last Thursday that was the reflection of all of the public comment and revisions to the blueprint. And this Accord really is the culmination of all the points that we agree on, that the Executive Board agrees on. Since that time on Thursday, there have been just a very short list of changes that I recommend that will ensure we get the most amount of support from the Executive Board today. So I want to review those brief changes. The first one is pertaining to the whereas section. We are referring to a Utah State Legislature resolution that was passed in 2012. And this resolution supported the evaluation through a public process of evaluating transportation solutions to serve all of the recreation uses in the mountains. And that was really something that sort of kicked off the Mountain Accord efforts, one of the many things that kicked off the effort. And so we felt it was important to reference this in the document. We are further clarifying that this Mountain Accord process and other efforts that have been conducted since that time reflect the current sentiments on those issues that the legislature raised. So this is just a clarifying point on this whereas, and that's the first one. This is a list of, I think, 5, by the way.
This is available for those of you. I think drafts have circulated to. I hope everybody has one. I see a lot floating around. If you didn't get one, you can also pull it up on your devices at mountainaccord.org. Mountainaccord.com. It's available on the website as well.
Okay, the second clarification is just some technical cleanup language on willing participants. So we're still committed to acquisitions of public lands for conservation purposes with willing participants, but this language was more suited in a different section of the document. So that was really just a technicality. It's been recommended that we not actually attach the federal legislation, but simply reference the draft that is being revised on a weekly basis. So the next and very important change that we want to discuss today, and I do think we'll take a few minutes to discuss this, is regarding the Snowbird Land Exchange and proposals for American Fort Canyon. So this has been a subject of a lot of controversy over the last few weeks, and the proposal by Snowbird includes lands in the Cottonwood Canyons, and their proposal also included lands in American Fort Canyon. So we want to be respectful to the jurisdictions in Utah County and allow them to conduct their own public processes to arrive at land solutions for American Fort Canyon. And we want to be very brief and simple with this language. We've proposed that Mountain Accord respects each jurisdiction's authorities and desires with respect to land actions. Snowbird has proposed land actions in Salt Lake County and Utah County. The signers of the accord are not taking a position on the land proposal as it relates to Utah County until such time as Utah County agrees to any land actions in Utah County. I believe this allows the board to express its support for those land actions in Salt Lake County that we've spent time negotiating without making any further recommendations on Utah County. I would also recommend that the maps reflect this language and that they do not highlight any actions in American Fort Canyon. So I think there's some technical corrections to make on the mapping. I don't have those prepared today, but I think that goes along with this language. So that would comprise the majority of the Snowbird section. There are some additional conditions that were negotiated specifically for lands in Little Cottonwood, and those conditions can remain in the document. The next change is just this technical cleanup of expressing our intent to work with willing sellers on land acquisitions for conservation purposes. And I believe the last change has come forward at the request of many different groups. The Howie Garber here in the audience, the Little Cottonwood Canyon Communities group, some of the Backcountry Alliance members, and many others who have expressed concern that we give equal weight to low impact bus options in the NEPA process. That has been the intent of the board, but we needed stronger language that clarified that. So this paragraph clearly states that we are requesting that the federal agencies fully consider bus-based transit alternatives that do not require major construction, and that those options be equally considered against options that do require major construction. The second part of this paragraph recommends that we give equal weight to not connecting the canyons as to connecting the canyons, and that we fully contemplate and consider and disclose all of the impacts that could be associated with canyon connections. So some of those that are listed here are increased usage, increased commercial opportunity, impacts to dispersed recreation and water resources. So I think this is an important clarification for the board. It doesn't change the intent, in my opinion, but it does provide further clarification for those readers of the accord that haven't been involved in all the deliberations and discussions to date. Pat Shea was another person that suggested that language. Yeah, one more just came through this morning. Peter Metcalf requested that we reference rock climbers in our trails section, which I think is a very important clarification. That just was a request that came through this morning, and I felt that was very in line with the intent of the accord and the board. So that's it for the recommended revisions. I do want to point out two other revisions on the maps. In terms of the Hidden Canyon land exchange near Brighton, it's come to our attention that there's a mapping error in terms of land that will be converted from private to public, and we're actually not showing all of the land that would be converted from private to public. So I'm requesting that that we take a few days or a week, that I'm given that time to actually decipher and diagnose a solution for that mapping correction. And the town of Alta requested some clarifying language on the amount of units that is previously planned at the town of Alta. So that comprises the suite of changes that I'm recommending for the board today.
Great. So this is the time where we can consider these changes and the accord more broadly. So I think where we'd go from here is probably entertain some discussion among the board, and then we'd open it up for some public comment, and then we'd come back to the board for any final comments and approval. But what I think might make sense is if we go around and get feedback from each of the members and a statement as to your intent to consent with conditions or whatnot on the accord, and lay out any discussion, and then we'll open it up for public comments. So why don't we go around and start with Mayor Dolan?
I'm okay with it.
I consent.
Hey, this is Nathan Rafferty with Ski Utah. I first want to applaud the work of the committee, but especially point out Lainey, who, when she's not cussing at me, we're having great dialogue and back and forth feedback. But also Mayor McAdams and Mayor Becker for pushing this very difficult task forward. I do want to make one clarifying statement, I think, that has been maybe misportrayed in the media, and it pertains to Ski Utah's proposal, One Wasatch proposal, our concept that we pushed forward last year. We knew that when we announced this concept that it would most definitely make some turns and readjustments along the way. Our primary goal with this concept is to have connectivity between the ski areas. We still feel very strongly that that connectivity remains. However, we are open to different kinds of connections. So I'll say for example, Alta and Grizzly Gulch, if we end up having some kind of transit connection between Big and Little Cottonwood Canyons, I think that would suffice to be a One Wasatch in a way, and just want to be clear that what we proposed a year ago, March, we certainly see as evolving and a very open dialogue. And I represent the ski industry, but I know there are a couple other ski industry representatives here. I don't know if it'd be okay to have a comment from anybody back here. Anno, if he's still awake back there.
We agree with Nate.
And we probably during the public comment we can find you.
Sure. Great, but that's it for me. Thanks.
Park City is supportive of the accord in this form. Certainly we had some concerns and conditions early on, but we appreciate everybody working with us, and we're very comfortable with where it sits.
As a federal agency, we're not going to be signing the accord, in part not to appear to prejudice the NEPA analysis. One thing we just picked up in the Mill Creek Canyon in section 3.1, there's a sentence in there that says no restrictions for automobiles other than those in effect or proposed. We wondered if that might be something that potentially just dropping that particular sentence, and then we basically have the full suite of options open, because at some point in the future we may be proposing restrictions on vehicles in Mill Creek Canyon, certainly to help with the shuttle program if that ever gets off the ground. So just one minor thing. And then we're looking forward to moving forward with the NEPA and engaging in that process and continuing the public involvement that we already have. Thank you.
Ralph Beck from Salt Lake City. Commending everyone, all of us really, for hanging in here now for a year and a half and reaching this point and recognizing we've got many additional efforts in front of us to be successful in carrying out conclusions today. This accord language as presented with the amendments today, I think we find acceptable, desirable. Appreciate all the comments people have made that have led to the final version we're looking at here. For Salt Lake City, I think, as everyone certainly around the table knows, but maybe not everybody in the audience knows, we are responsible for watershed protection in these canyons and have been for well over 100 years, and take that responsibility and jurisdictional authority very, very seriously. And we have put a whole series of what you might call conditions going forward in terms of analysis of things that may be considered in transportation or may be considered in terms of different lands actions. That kind of condition elements we're putting on the table in terms of both water rights and in terms of lands and in terms of representing the interests, we think, of residents in Salt Lake City. And those we feel are very well reflected. And we look forward to, as this process moves forward, both in the congressional arena and with the NEPA processes, that look forward to those elements being considered in a great deal more detail that we obviously haven't been able to do as part of this process to address our concerns and our desires. And I think that this overall effort, which everyone has contributed to mightily, reflects a huge potential step forward if we're able to carry out what we see in the Mountain Accord results here, to advance protection of these mountains in ways that could only have been dreamed about when we started the process. So thank everybody.
Kelvin Cullimore with Cottonwood Heights. First of all, I'd like to thank Laney for getting the changes in there about the buses going up the canyons. I think we're going to need a staged approach, and that's going to be needed much sooner than anything else. And so we appreciate that clarification. As far as the Utah County issue goes, I'm very supportive of the changes that have been made, but I'm wondering if we could even take it a step further and say something to the effect of not only do we respect their rights to make their own decisions, but we want to collaborate with them. Because I think in the end, any decision that's going to be made is going to have to cross county boundaries at some point. And so I think we ought to make an affirmative statement of our willingness to cooperate and collaborate with them in their process, as well as being able to pursue our process. Because in the end, if we don't do that, we're going to end up with disparate approaches, and I think that's not going to serve anybody very well. So I know you're trying to bring this to a conclusion. I'm not trying to add more things to it, but I think that would be an appropriate step to take. The only other question I had was in section 3.17. We've got in 3.17.1 we talk about a collaborative governance approach, and then in 3.17.3 we talk about the watershed, regulating the watershed along the Wasatch Front, and then additional regional approach. But that regional approach, is that talking about management of the watershed, or is that more of a duplicate of 3.17.1? I'm wondering if we need both of those. If that could, I just couldn't remember what the clarification was on that, because we talk in 3.17.1 about having some sort of collaborative effort for governance, and then 3.17.3 we talk about it again in a little different way. So just wondering if we could have that clarified at some point as we finish that. But with those clarifications, we're supportive.
Andrew Gruber with the Wasatch Front Regional Council. We're supportive as well, and I just want to note the insert on considering bus-based alternatives and considering not connecting the canyons, I think is an excellent and important insertion here. And I would just echo what was said already. It was always the intention to study that fully, but to clarify and make sure that it's clear that there is no preconceived notion, there's no preconceived outcome to where we're going here is very important. So that change is made not reluctantly, but wholeheartedly. I think it's an important addition. Thank you.
Chris Robinson, Summit County Council. We appreciate all the work that's gone into this version of the Accord and everything that's led up to it, and we concur.
My name is Mike Wilson. I'm with the Metropolitan Water District of Salt Lake and Sandy, and we concur with this version of the Accord as well. And would like to echo the many thanks and the efforts that have gone forward. The water resources that are involved in these canyons are just basic and instrumental to the Salt Lake Valley and the going forward and the history of the entities that are served by those canyons. And this is a good balance of protection.
Ivan Marrero, Federal Highway Administration. We commend the board for the great work to get us here, and all the people who work with the system groups and behind the scenes to really do the hard work. Also the public for your input and your comments. It's been a very open and cooperative effort. We neither support nor oppose the Accord, but do look forward to whatever involvement we may have during the NEPA process.
Carl Fisher with Save Our Canyons. I think that this has been a very good process for us, and we've learned a lot all along the way. I think everybody can agree that we ended up in a very different place than which we started in this process. And as we've seen, change is very hard for varying perspectives to accept. And that's what this is about. It's about dealing with change. It's about controlling the change and trying to grab the bull by the horns a little bit and make some proactive steps for this, irreplaceable asset that we're so fortunate to be surrounded by. And to get there and with that change, the stakeholders, a lot of the partner organizations in the environmental and the recreation community, the public at large, all the colleagues on the executive board here. Lainey, I'll echo. Nathan, you were the only one she was cussing at. Your efforts were tireless, and we sincerely thank you. Going up to the last half hour before this meeting, we were working on some pretty big issues, so I appreciate your efforts there. I do have to say, and I hope that Anna will get up here and have some time to talk, but the one thing that I think every organization from the environmental and recreation communities, one thing we've all had a really, really hard time with, and this is not by any means a deal breaker for us in the Accord. However, I think the groups want some acknowledgement of how significant and that we don't agree on the connectivity issues between Alta and Big Cottonwood Canyon. We think we've engaged and rolled up our sleeves and have come to understand many of the challenges environmentally, economically of Alta ski lifts and the Alta community. But frankly, we disagree that connectivity is the solution that will resolve that. And I think I need to say that not only for members of my board and our membership of Save Our Canyons, but also of those of the Wasatch Backcountry Alliance, Friends of Alta, Wasatch Mountain Club, just to name a few of those organizations. And we think that connecting will fundamentally change Alta, and that there's really nothing you can do to protect Alta than simply do that, protect everything that is Alta and everything that is around Alta. But we do appreciate the time, and it's an impasse that we're, as an organization, accepting. The one other thing in the Accord document is there are a couple references to
associated amenities, particularly in 3.14, and then where it also in the, it was 3.10, where it talks about transfers of land to the town of Alta. We just want to make sure that those amenities, that we're not permitting commercial development. Some of them refer to restrooms, some of them refer to commercial development. We think those are two very different types of activities in the canyon, so we would request some consistency in the language. When you mean commercial, let's say commercial. When we mean restrooms, let's leave it at restrooms. But other than that, we are very supportive and thank everybody for committing the time and energy to work with us. Thanks.
Tom Pollard, Mayor, Town of Alta. It's good to go after Carl since he has everything to say about the Town of Alta, so I appreciate that. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody that I've been involved with through this whole process. I mean, it's been an amazing experience, and I think everybody has listened to everybody's viewpoint and worked really hard to get to where we are today. And I formalized getting my community support at 10 o'clock this morning, so I feel good about that moving forward. But I think some of the things that Carl brings up is, Alta is a small community that's kind of been the way it's been for the last 50, 60 years. And the community of Alta, that includes the people who live here, the people who visit, the people in the valley who consider Alta their home. They like it the way it is, and the impacts of what Mountain Accord could bring is a lot of change around us. This process was started for me for the purpose of trying to look at transportation improvements in Little Cottonwood Canyon. Our community feels like that's essential to our success going forward. But some of these modes and such can have a pretty big impact on what would happen in our small valley community and where some of the stuff and where some of the modes would go and how they would go through our town. And but we're committed to the process of the evaluation through the NEPA process. The other issue that concerns the town of Alta is the magnitude of the land exchange, with so much of the land in the base area being switched from public ownership to private ownership. And as I understand, and we understand the opportunities that can bring to us, there's a little bit of concern and fear over what the future is going to look like. So we have to believe in our legislative power as a municipality to zone and plan our community the way we want, and the way we and our residents want, and we can look forward to doing that in the future. With regard to a tunnel to the Big Cottonwood Canyon, our community is probably not in favor of that as we move forward. But that all being said, with the work that's been done over the last week, and especially over the weekend, the town of Alta concurs with no comments.
I'm Alan Matheson from the state of Utah, and we certainly recognize the Wasatch Mountains as a statewide asset, something that is important for all of us who live here in Utah and beyond. It's important whether we visit there, whether we drink the water from there, or whether we benefit and lower taxes from the economic benefits that come from that. As we look at what we've done here, we recognize that Mountain Accord doesn't have legal authority to make these things happen. What it is an exercise in getting various interests that care very much about this asset, that recognize a stewardship obligation that we all have to ensure that this great asset is available for generations. Come together and learn from one another and to identify issues, work through tough issues, and try to find where we've got common ground. I think that's what we've done to a large extent here. We've found a baseline that we can largely agree on that'll help us as we move forward in fulfilling that stewardship obligation. from the perspective of the governor's office, it was very concerned about resolving the Utah County issue and recognizing their right authority to make decisions in that area. I think we'd agree, Mayor, it makes a lot of sense to have ongoing collaboration, but not have anything from this body that would direct what might happen or inappropriately emphasize what ought to happen in that area. So that was a big step for us. Care very much about the watershed values. Those need to be protected long term. The recreational opportunities, the environmental values. And we believe and have from the beginning that those environmental values and the recreational opportunities and the economies associated with the ski resorts are not mutually exclusive. That if we think carefully, and plan carefully, have the discussions that we've been having, that we can accommodate those interests up there. But it does take ongoing work. Many thanks to all who have participated. I know that we're reaching an important milestone, but far from the end.
Great. Justin Jones with the Salt Lake Chamber. We're grateful to be part of this process and have been from the beginning. And if anything, this process has made it very clear that doing nothing is not an option for the future of the Mountain Accord area. And we're grateful for the executive committee, the management group, and others who participated, especially Lainey, as has been mentioned. She's been amazing, and we appreciate her work. We appreciate and will be voting in favor of the Accord as it's written. Thanks.
Mayor Doler, thanks for hosting us here. The Utah Transit is very supportive of this document. I wanted to just highlight that stakeholders, systems groups, there were hundreds of thousands of hours put into it by volunteers that came out and just poured their energy into this. And this is a culmination of that exercise. It's by no means the end, but I am most appreciative of all that output and input and all that engagement that had happened. I'd also like to point out the uniqueness and challenge opportunities is embedded in this document are some immediate action items, and there's also an effort to look at a long-term vision. So we're combining things that we should do right now with a perspective that may last for 50 or 100 some years. And I appreciate how difficult that is to say, what are we doing tomorrow versus what's going to occur a long time from now. But I think that's been the uniqueness of this effort, and I applaud the group that has participated in it.
Well, I also, it's been an honor to participate in this Mountain Accord process since really it started before I was elected as mayor of Salt Lake County. And so we're going on 3 years of this process in various iterations and forms. But I've been, both in my service in the state senate and as mayor, participated in numerous public processes, and I will say there's been none that has been more engaged, more open and transparent, and sought to solicit public input with just the sheer quantity of open houses and public hearings and emails and outreach that we've solicited from the public. I would say there's no process in the history of the state of Utah that rivals what's happened with Mountain Accord, and I think we should all be commended for that. There's certainly more engagement, more feedback, and that we'll continue to receive as this moves forward. This is an ongoing, and the input from the public will be ongoing, and their input is valuable as we move forward with the Mountain Accord. We have a diverse group of stakeholders around the table who I think there were probably more swearing than patting on the back among this group, and the fact that we're all here today says something. I think that one of the things that kept me at the table in those moments where I was ready to walk away was recognizing that having no agreement is worse than compromising and working with people with whom I disagree. And Justin Jones mentioned that, the do nothing option that we talked about. Doing nothing means these lands can't be conserved at the level that I would like to see them conserved. We can't provide the experience for backcountry and ski resort users and others that we'd like to see them have unless we can come together and work on an accord. And I think that's the reality of the failure of doing nothing and what that would mean
to our respective values and goals for the Wasatch is what kept us at the table. So Salt Lake County will consent. I wanted to maybe just respond, Mayor Colmer, to your question on that 3.17.1 and also 3.17.3. They are different. As we've talked about this and as this language was developed, there are two notions that play in this. The first one, right there, 17.1, relates to some of the ongoing governance of what's coming out of the Mountain Accord. For example, the notion that we would have an environmental dashboard or some trails or even some of the transit services in these canyons. Should there be some type of governance that lasts beyond the work of Mountain Accord, that this body may continue in some form to prioritize trail maintenance and trail construction, or prioritize or manage the dashboard, and to make sure that that's done in a collaborative fashion that reflects the interest of various entities. 3.17.3 speaks specifically to there's the watershed authority, and that should be maintained. And the second part is land use jurisdiction. So decisions as it relates to land use, which is different than the ongoing maintenance of the trails and whatnot. And the statement that the regional approach to land use should be maintained. I think it is conceivable that the governance listed in 3.17.1, the land use could perhaps be subsumed into that if we get that right, and if the right mix of stakeholders and a collaborative process, that would be creative and innovative in the state of Utah, and certainly would require legislation. But if we get that governance right, the governing body that's managing trails and an environmental dashboard could be a governing body that also manages land use or makes land use decisions. But I think for now it's important to keep them separate, because we're recognizing that there's a desire to have some type of ongoing governance that would continue the work of Mountain Accord, because it is not just what decisions are we making tomorrow, but how do we make wise decisions in 100 years for the next 100 years, and the belief that the best decisions will come from a collaborative body where all of the stakeholders are engaged and represented and have a say in the process and the decisions that are made, and then also recognizing that's how land use is done currently, and we'd like to see that regional collaborative approach to land use continue in some form going forward.
If I were a signatory, I would sign, but I'm not. So with that, I think we can open for public comment.
So why don't we open it up for public comment? I guess we can just go ahead and use this chair right here. We want to keep the microphone close. That's okay. There's okay. We have a podium. So why don't you come up to the podium? We'd like to limit. There are numerous members of the public here today. Limit public comment to 2 minutes. So please come forward, share your opinion. Lainey will keep the watch, but if you could limit your comments to 2 minutes, that would be appreciated. So state your name and who you represent, if anyone. So go ahead.
My name is Jamie Kent. I'm with Wasatch Backcountry Alliance.
No, Jamie, I don't think we can hear you.
I'm with Wasatch Backcountry Alliance, Jamie Kent. I'm the board chair. We're a completely volunteer organization. I'd just like to thank Mountain Accord. I think I've had the opportunity to meet with 80% of everybody on the executive committee, and I'd like to express my gratitude that when we have had concerns, everybody's listened. One thing that I've learned in this process is that it's very difficult to trust each other. And as I've met individually with people, I've learned to take a pretty big step in trusting. A lot of these things are very painful for the backcountry community. Carl did a great job in covering our sentiments regarding the connectivity regarding the top of the Alta and Grizzly Gulch. I won't hit on that very much. Ano knows how we feel about that. We've had some good conversations with him, and he's well aware of our feelings towards that. One of the big, I think, accomplishments that we were able to have is we weren't very comfortable with one of the very popular and important backcountry areas in the Silver Fork area, which we were able to express our concerns, and we were able to get a meeting with the Forest Service with Solitude and Mountain Accord were able to talk about our concerns there. The language in the current version of the Accord, I don't know how, I mean, I guess words can be interpreted in various ways, but part of the language says that several alternatives will be studied through the NEPA process. And I just wanted to ask Lainey quickly if that and those various alternatives include the discussion that we had with the Forest Service. They do. Okay. Once again, trusting the process. We trust that they will be. It'd be nice to have that language put in here, but we understand that we are at the very end of this process and coming to an accord. Another great concern for the Wasatch Backcountry Alliance, and it was a very difficult thing to go forward with, were the Utah County lands, and we're pleased that they've been removed. We look forward to hopefully working with the Utah County folks as far as our experience in this process, and hopefully we can help shape the outcome of that as well. One other thing that I don't know if was explored significantly that I think is very important, there's some very prized backcountry lands in Carter Fork and the Argenta area, and we hope that those possibilities were explored. But anyway, I thank everybody. My time's up. I could go on for quite a bit longer. But once again, thank you for the time, and we appreciate it.
I'm Barbara Cameron, representing Big Cottonwood Community Council. We want to commend you for the enormous amount of time that you've each spent on this. We support you in your signing of this accord today, and because we think there are many elements that have a good benefit to Big Cottonwood Canyon. But moreover, you've offered up a template for continuing this discussion, this dialogue. The Mountainous Planning District was recently passed by the Utah legislature, and that has the possibility of continuing this kind of discussion with the coordination from public agencies and other stakeholders. That offers a lot of hope for us, and we hope that these meetings will continue. You're probably tearing your hair out at that, but we feel like Mountain Accord has given us hope, it's given us a vision, and it's given us a template right here, right now, and we're very grateful. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Willie Holtman. I'm with Protective Preserve American Fork Canyon. I want to give thanks to the board here for thinking about us over there in Utah County side. I think we were kind of surprised when this all happened, and we're so grateful that you've included us in the process. My question is, can we go back to that point, 3.1, where it talks about the snowbird lands? Just the very beginning there. So it says that Snowbird has proposed land action in Salt Lake County and Utah County. The signers of the accord are not taking a position on the land proposals. My question is mostly to David. So this NEPA process, is that going to continue with those lands in American Fork Canyon at this point? Or is that going to happen after the Utah County go through our own process?
So at this point, what my plan is to take what Mountain Accord recommends as a proposed action, and I wouldn't move forward with a proposal on lands to be exchanged until we get broad agreement on that. And so that would include Utah County, that would include Snowbird, that would include the Forest Service, that would include Salt Lake County for lands that Snowbird would be proposing to exchange and the Forest Service would receive. So until that is agreed upon, we won't be moving forward with any sort of proposed action.
Just a quick follow-up then. So the NEPA study really isn't going to start, once it starts, it's going to include Utah County lands and all the lands together?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It depends on what that proposed action is. if there are no lands that would be included in Utah County, then we won't have any lands in Utah County. Now, that aside, when we're going through NEPA, we have to consider all alternatives. And if somebody brings up an alternative and says, we'd like you to consider this, then I am required by law to consider any reasonable alternative that may exist.
So Snowbird has approached you on these lands, that they want to negotiate on forest lands, possibly do a resort expansion, whatever. That could go ahead and take place without really anything with the Accord.
Yes, that could be proposed outside of the court. We get lots of people who propose land exchanges outside of a process like this. So we've got land exchanges going on all the time across the forest. So that could be done, but it would be outside of this process. But it would still go through a NEPA process, and it would still involve the public in any kind of proposal that would be made.
Hi, my name is Ann Ober. I'm actually sitting up here as the co-chair of the Environmental System Group. I had a couple of members of that system group ask me to read a letter, and so after conversation with Lainey, I agreed to read that letter here. Dear Ann, you have asked, and this is from Pat Shea. Dear Ann, you have asked me to write what I think could be done with the Mountain Accord as we approach the end of Phase 1. I will offer you a short suggestion and will attach a longer critique. I hope that you would share this short suggestion with the Executive Committee at the scheduled executive session Monday, July 13th. In 2050, the Mountain Accord will be determined to have been a success if its transportation plan worked. Given this premise, it is important to enter Phase 2 of Mountain Accord with a plan which will garner public trust and support. Such a plan would include a person by whose reputation and intellect would be believed. And then he goes on to explain that he believes that Bishop Dave Burton is the person who could help with this process going into the Big and Little Cottonwoods NEPA process. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail just because I have 2 minutes. The next is that he gave 5 points of critique. One, that Mountain Accord has not designated an applicant for the NEPA process. He feels like it's inappropriate for this group to move forward without designating that person or that organization or agency. Mountain Accord has spent little to no time examining a bus rapid transit. I believe that language is now included in the document after today's amendments. Mountain Accord has not committed to a system to monitor trails, and I think that that's something that the Trails Group continues to work on. Okay, and that language has been added. Cars in Little and Big Cottonwood Canyons should be treated the same way they are in Mill Creek, that is, charged for private cars in the canyons. That'll be considered going into the NEPA process. And the fifth one is examine a cable transportation system between the canyons, including Park City, which would be funded privately with no stops on the ridge lines. And that discussion has happened amongst this group, and I feel fairly confident that this group has worked that out to the extent possible.
My name is Steve Knock. I'm from Utah County. I live in American Fork City. I want to speak to the board. First of all, I appreciate you hosting this public event so we can come and talk to you and hear what's going on and get the latest and greatest. Being one guy, I know I don't have a whole lot of influence here, but I'm hoping that you'll be able to see where I'm coming from in this whole argument. I knew nothing about what was going on in American Fork Canyon until one morning I was doing my daily ritual of reading through Fox 13 News. And I found out that this was already taking place, that this was already a well-oiled machine and this was going to happen. And that startled me and got me really excited. And I feel like that is a common occurrence amongst Utah County, is that it wasn't Mountain Accord coming out and reaching out to the public specifically in Utah County, specifically American Fork Canyon users, saying, hey, we've got this great idea, we want to get your feedback on it, we want to talk to you about it, we want you to help us propose a solution here. so that we can protect these precious lands. I think what Utah County saw was, hey, look what we did, and it's gonna happen soon. And I honestly feel that's where you guys shot yourselves in the foot. I can appreciate anybody, any organization trying to protect the land. I think that's what the focus needs to be. But, you know, making sure that you're talking to the right audience is probably more crucial. So it makes me really sad to see that nobody from Utah County is sitting with your executive board here. I mean, you're all fine people. You had really good comments today, and I appreciate the couple that said we want to see more collaboration with Utah County come forward. I would encourage you all to carry that opinion. My time's up, but thanks, guys.
I'm Howie Garber. I represent the Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment, and we are very supportive of Mountain Accord moving forward. This has really been an unprecedented effort in achieving consensus on some very difficult issues, and we'd really like to give our unqualified support to this process going into transitioning into a NEPA process. I just want to point out a couple of things, and that is that Little Cottonwood Canyon sees a maximum of about 9,000 cars on peak ski days, and this is a small fraction of the vehicles using the I-15 corridor. And, you know, given that tunneling could cost, you know, $1 billion, it just seems like we could solve a lot of our air quality problems for that kind of money. Mimi Levitt of Friends of Alta pointed out to me the other day that when referencing Park City, there was a mention of carrying capacity. And it seems like in the history of planning in the canyons, carrying capacity has been kind of a dirty word. And I just wondered if someone on the executive committee could talk about why carrying capacity was mentioned in reference to Park City, but not in other areas in the study area. And I heard some mention previously about things that are going to take place soon and things that are going to take place, you know, far into the future. And one thing I'd point out is that as far as safety is concerned, you know, enforcing speed limits in the canyon, electric signs, and maybe even doubling the fines for speeding would make it a lot safer for cyclists and for the general public. I mean, you know, one person has an accident in the canyons, it holds up traffic for hours, and it's inappropriate. Thank you very much.
I do want to point out that carrying capacity has been called out as an analysis, Howie, for the Cottonwoods as well.
Good afternoon. Excuse me. My name is Skip Silloway. I'm on the board of Friends of Alta. Much of my thunder has been stolen, but I think I wrote a letter with Peter Caron to the Tribune commending this process. I still commend it. It's a bit of a trust issue, but verified, so I have a lot of questions going forward. I'm most concerned about watershed and wildlife habitat and the recreation area in Little Cottonwood Canyon. I think that the price of the land swap, which includes a tunnel out the back of Little Cottonwood Canyon, is simply too much of a price to pay. I think that the degradation would come from that is untold. I think the train coming up the valley could be equally troublesome. I do see some things in there that I guess it's still changing, but the fact that a phrase has just been put in talking about buses in Little Cottonwood Canyon, I must say I'm on one track record. I'm a Little Cottonwood Canyon guy. That's an addition that I find very supportive, and I think idea of questioning the connectivity is equally important. My last comment is that if nothing comes out of this, the best thing would be the special designation, which everybody's talking about. And if we don't get that, I think we simply have failed.
My name is Justin Albertson, just a simple resident. Just a few things I wanted to cover. In my opinion, Mountain Accord has failed to address the conflicts within their own proposed blueprint. The components of the blueprint are heavily weighted towards commerce and industry. And without explicit restrictions on development, there remains a persistent threat of sneaky or pervasive language that can perpetually threaten conservation efforts. That's all I can say.
Well, my name is Brett Clayton, and I represent Little Cottonwood Canyon Communities, and we've met with a number of you. Hope I don't butcher his words, but I think Yogi Berra said something like, if you don't plan on where you're going, you probably will end up somewhere else. And so, planning for the future is great. We have no problem with that. But don't build today, or in 4 or 5 years, something that you may need in 30, 40, or 50 years. Planning is great, because we all know how forecasts go. We have 3 kind of key points, and I'm going to go through the first one very quickly. It's just the public process from January to now to then entering NEPA. That's pretty quick to get feedback, assess it, feed it back to the committees, to the executive board. We have a concern at that pace, but I'm not going to spend time on that. My understanding, and I'm not an environmental lawyer, but my understanding of the NEPA process and the EIS is that you propose an action, not actions, but an action. And that seems to be the trend. And that is what concerns us the most, is it just keeps popping to the top of the list. If I'm wrong on that, that's great. But I don't know if I am. I'm not sure I am. The biggest issue is on the transportation system itself. Little Cottonwood Canyon is not a mass transit system like Parley's Canyon. It shouldn't be, it never should be, it just isn't. The environmental impact to the canyon of building a train up there will be significant. Trains don't go in bendy lines, they have to go fairly straight. The pace at which they would go is a big issue. The cost, not only to build it will be significant, but the operating costs are going to be significant as well. And so I haven't seen numbers, but the user fees that they could not cover even the nearest. My time is up, so I'll just quickly say there are more cost-effective and flexible solutions, buses that are nonstop from various places in the valley that can go up the canyon. Buses can be added and dropped. Demand varies not only by season, summer versus winter, but even days within a season, Monday versus Saturday. Buses, they can be natural gas, we can move to electric when it's more feasible. That is a much more flexible solution in the next 10 to 20, maybe 30 years. That's where we should be looking. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Matt Westrich. I'm currently the president of the Utah Four-Wheel Drive Association and 25-year board member. I'm also a member of the Blue Ribbon Coalition and past president of Take Back Utah and of the Bighorn 4x4 Club. I've been in Utah for over 25 years, and first off, I think you guys up here at the table deserve a big round of applause for all the hard work that you've been doing on this. I think y'all deserve a real. I have never seen in my 25 years in Utah working with land use issues this many different sides of the table all here at one time. So I'm also currently working on the BLM travel plan for the state of Utah, so I know a little bit about the HIPAA process and the things that go along with that. I want to thank you guys for taking out Utah county out of this because of the impact on the off-road community, the snowmobile community, the ATV community, the single track up American Fork Canyon. There's very few places left along the Wasatch Front that we can go close to home. Mayor, I don't think there's a trail left in Salt Lake County that a four-wheel drive can go on. They've all been pretty much gone, aren't they? On the Okers, on the very far side, a few left out there going up over to Tooele. Yeah, we rescued a full-size Blazer off an ATV trail up there one night. So, so I want to thank you guys for taking that out, and consider when you do bring an organization like this together, please consider the off-road community to bring us in. The Utah Four-Wheel Drive Association is a full 100% volunteer organization. We got a lot of good people. We want to work with you. We want to help keep public lands public here in the state of Utah and keep everything going for everybody and work with both sides of the fence. So, congratulations on the work that you have done here, and let's move forward with it. Thank you very much.
My name is Ronnie Romero. I live at Wasatch Resort, and that's going up Little Cottonwood Canyon. I haven't heard much talk about the train going up the canyon. I don't know. I've talked to Lainey once before about the blueprint going up there, and she told me she doesn't know where it's at as far as left side, south side or north side of the canyon. Being that I live at Wasatch Resort is a historical spot. It's where the pioneers got all the temple quarrying for the temple. And my home happens to be dated back to Brigham Young and Wilford Woodruff. These homes are in there. And if you guys bring in a train, you're going to destroy Wasatch Resort. I live there. I don't want my home destroyed. How many homes are going to need to be condemned from State Street up to Snowbird and Alta to bring in this train that you want? You want more people up the canyon, but you say you want to save the canyon. How are you going to do that with more people up there? The cars that are going up there now, you guys, there's a limit of cars that go up there. Once it's full, you guys have to turn them away. Get more buses. Get more buses. Make it work. But to bring a train up there, you're going to destroy, it's going to be, 200 feet footprint to go up and down that canyon. You're going to destroy the water that we drink and save our canyons. All you people are supposed to be protecting our lands. That's going to mess it up. My main concern is the train because of where I live. What you do up at Snowbird and Alta, it doesn't bother me because I do ski it when I want to, but not because I have to. And for the people who, I don't even know who's going to support, who's going to pay for the train if it goes up there? The citizens? We're not going to make anything of it. No one's going to make it. It's going to be Snowbird and Alta. My concern is where I live. I don't want my home destroyed. I hope you people understand that, and there's going to be a lot more homes destroyed because of it if it goes in. So my concern is the train. So that's what I have to say.
My name is Craig Osterloh. I'm with the Little Cottonwood Canyon Communities as well. I will thank you for your efforts, but I'm not going to pat you on the back. I know there's been a lot of that going on here. But myself, I'm not very impressed with the results. Who I see at the table is I see climbers, I see cross-country skiers, I see Ski Utah, I see ski resorts, I see some people who are interested in commerce and interested in development. A year and a half ago, when we first heard about Mountain Accord, we wanted to become involved, and we spoke with Lainey. And she told us about the 4 committees that you were going to have: environment and recreation and economic and transportation. And I mentioned to her that you're missing one valuable committee, and that's a citizen committee. We needed a committee from the citizens so that they could make known their opinions, not through their mayors. I know we have 4 mayors here, not through their mayors, but through a citizens group. And each of the meetings that you held were vastly controlled so the citizens could not speak out about how they felt about this. And the best way I can describe what we think is going to happen based on the directions that you have been taking is to look at the Sandy City Bell Canyon Trail. This is a trail that they built, and they did a wonderful job putting some parking. Well, they were taken over by their success. Now the trail is being destroyed, there's graffiti everywhere, There's trails going off in all different directions. The parking is dangerous. All of this because of their success. And we're worried that we're doing the same thing. We're addressing these things before we've determined what the carrying capacity of the canyon is. We're addressing these things before we've decided how much money we have to spend. And these are things that we're concerned about. We're concerned that as we move forward, we're going to ruin the canyons because of special interest groups who want to develop the economic aspect of the canyon rather than the conservation side of the canyon. Thank you for listening.
My name is Dave Robinson, and I appreciate this fellow saying, you know, he believes that the process was kind of frustrating, and I certainly went through some of that as well. And we saw some people leave the table. But I think what really has been good is those that have stayed at the table and that have made their voices heard. As much as I disagree with Laney sometimes, as much as I disagree with some of the executive committees and others, I think that this Mountain Accord has taken into consideration some of the concerns. I do believe that one of the areas that has not been addressed has been the ongoing litigation in Big and Little Cottonwood Canyon. I believe that Mayor Becker and Laura Briefer and Jeff Niemeyer, I believe that those things should have been addressed. I personally have represented over 3,000 acres in those canyons. I have watched the litigation that's gone on Patsy Marley, with Albion Basin, currently with Argenta, and at every turn I can show that through Mayor Becker and Jeff Niemeyer's litigation, they are raising the price of land. In the handful of years I've been involved up there, I can show that land prices have doubled, tripled, and quadrupled. And so for these backcountry people that say, we want to preserve these properties, these inholdings, they keep getting more expensive with the litigation. So I hope that what can come about with this is, I absolutely have willingness to meet with anybody, anytime, anywhere, to discuss and address these issues. When we collectively control more of the private lands than what the resorts do and others, there's some real merit here. There's value in the Forest Service having these lands. There's value in Salt Lake City having these lands and others. So I would say to Mayor Becker, I would say to anyone else that wants to address these issues, I'll give you my email, I'll give you my phone number, whatever, but they need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed now. Thank you.
I'm Don Halverson. I'm part of the Little Cottonwood Canyon community. I just wanted to add one thing to what the other fellows have said, that the ski resorts are fabulous resource that we have, and we want to protect them. But they serve the entire state of Utah. They serve not only Salt Lake County, but Summit County, Wasatch County, and Utah County. And we think that, yeah, sure, there's some staged approaches we need to deal with for the next couple of years, and maybe buses and things that will help. But on the overall long-term solution, we would hope that the entire surroundings of our ski resorts be considered, and that the fact that Utah, the Little Cottonwood Canyon and Big Cottonwood Canyon have been the traditional access points to those resorts should not prejudice the final solution to access to our ski resorts. Thank you.
My name is Robert Shelley. I'm a resident of Alpine. Grew up in American Fork and have used American Fork Canyon my entire life in all of its various ways. And it's an amazing place. No other place like it in Utah. Of all the different ways that you can use that canyon. And when we became aware that it possibly could change, it was very upsetting to us and pretty much anyone we talked to, and when they found out what was going to happen. So I applaud the board for taking a very difficult decision to remove the Utah County lands from the proposal. I also applaud Snowbird for, I don't know what part they played in that, but Snowbird's a great place. That's where we love to ski, but it concerned us when we weren't involved in the process and didn't get to see how this really would affect something that we all hold so dearly. And so I think there's a lot of work left to do going forward to figure out, you know, what can happen to get everybody to agree to something that is a win-win for everybody. And I look forward to being involved in that any way I can to try to make it so that this place remains a great place for everyone. So thanks again for all your hard work.
Todd Leeds from the Wasatch Backcountry Alliance. I just want to say a couple of words I said to the transportation subgroup at their last meeting that might warrant speaking to the greater group. When we first started out, I entered this looking at the Accord as being very weighted too much and very much so towards transportation in a way that may lead to overdevelopment of the canyons. I think the direction that it's taken over the last year where to preservation and considering the environment and the watershed is a huge step in a positive direction. I commend all of you for helping the process move in that direction. I realize I could look out and see people I agree with, people I don't agree with, and I think the dissent and the collaboration, you know, overall has, you know, worked really well, and I think it's definitely has moved in a good direction. And finally, I think proof of this is I'd like to commend my elected mayor, Mayor Cullimore, on what he said earlier. I think if the two of us can see, for those of you who don't know the two of us, I think if the two of us can see eye to eye on even a statement, we're probably doing pretty well. So thanks, everyone.
My name is Brad Frost. I'm a member of the City Council of American Fork City, and I talked to the mayor just before I came, and he is with his wife who is ill, and he said, please go and speak for me. So I'm speaking on behalf of our mayor, and I guess in behalf of the entire city of American Fork. We have the privilege of sharing the name of the canyon. We don't have any special privilege but that, and we are thrilled that we are out of the discussion of the Mountain Accord. I came here with a very prepared speech, and it was a speech of rebuke. And I didn't like carrying that around with me. And it's, as I've come here today, as I've seen these efforts and the collaboration and these great words that I like to see, I'm going to feel a lot better today. And I hope you do too. Because we have, you know, in the last 45 days, 2 months, I've looked at a lot of maps, and we've had to draw a line in these maps on these ridges. And we've had to clarify the lines and where jurisdictions are. And so if you come off a little farther and you get a little higher in the sky, you don't see the lines. And you just see the canyons. And we believe on Utah County side that we have something pretty special like you. And we can work together, and there doesn't need to be a line. And we think that there's a lot of people from Salt Lake County that come over into our canyon to enjoy it as well. So there's no reason that we can't move forward and work together from this day forward. We have learned from you. Let me just tell you that there's a lot of diversity in these groups, and from those who want to protect it and just hike into it to those who want to ride to it. And we've seen them, and I think we have a little bit of an advantage because of the hard work and efforts on the Utah County side, and that is we have unified for this purpose, to just claim the ability to plan it. So our groups are very close. We're going to take that and we're going to catapult into the planning of American Fork Canyon, because at the end, like Mayor McAdams said, not everybody gets what they want. I feel like I know Lainey, and I've never met her until today. We've had some good spirited email exchanges, and then we can't wait to meet each other, and we met today. And I feel like I know her. So we are thrilled. We will take this process. We have a very established process in Utah County with the Mountain Land Associated Government, which the mayors are all a part of. And we're going to take what we learned and the ability to now plan holistically in the canyon, not just from the ground up, but we're taking into consideration the tops. And we will be good stewards. We have passed resolutions indicating that, and we're going to be accountable in them resolutions as well. So Thank you very much. I'm going to do something very different, and I don't want to disrupt this meeting, but I'm going to, just because the mayor sent me, I want to just shake everybody's hand very quickly from Utah County.
Can't let a quiet moment go to waste. My name is Mark Allen. I really like what's been said about protecting and conserving. I started a group 8 weeks ago that has grown to 8,500 households. And we initially started out asking quietly and nicely, can you guys respect us and our processes down in Utah County? And I had to keep raising the voice, the level, until we could get this to happen. I'm a little bit troubled by that. I like what Brad has said, but I'm a little troubled that as soon as 416 acres were added into the equation, I didn't get a phone call from every one of you saying, hey, we've overstepped our bounds. I think Snowbird's in a very unique position, Bob. I think if Bob is genuinely concerned about the environment, which he said at his Fox Hollow meeting, he has 2,500 acres of ground. He could retire all of that. We've got 8 ski resorts. Snowbird's name could go down in the history books as a champion of the environment. It really could. When I first learned about this and what that 416 acres meant, the troubling word is contiguous land. 416 acres doesn't seem like much, but when it creates contiguous land, then the 1% affects the 99. Our watershed is at stake. The livelihood of people down in the valley is at stake. We don't want a gated community up there. Bob alluded to some of those kind of things at our Fox Hollow meeting, and I don't think anybody here is aware of that. Who's been to American Fork Canyon, the areas we're talking about? You raise your hand. So really, it's a crown jewel. I'm an old Grand Canyon river guide. People go down to Grand Canyon, why? Not to see commercialism. They go down there to see the hand of God. If I want to see the hand of man, I've got 8 ski resorts I can go to. But when I want to block out the noise of the world, I've got one place left that's uncommercialized. That's American Fork Canyon. We all ought to champion the preservation of that. So thank you. I'm going to call off the emails that have been blasting you. We'll kind of reduce that a little bit. And we'd love to work with any of you that have the same kind of consideration for protecting the environment. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rich Wyman, and I live in Park City. I've lived there for 25 years. My wife and 2 kids that we've raised here. And I'll applaud you all as well for all the work that you've been doing. I know it's been hard, but it's also been hard as an activist citizen to keep up with it. And one of the things, I'll echo Pat Shea's comment about the lead agency in NEPA. How do we know who that's going to be? When will we know who that's going to be? Is that something that can be answered? Okay. And are you still looking at December of 2016 having the whole NEPA process wrapped up? I'm curious why. That seems rather quick.
This has been discussed about 7 years. We're now 3 years into this process, so it's really not that quick to be. That's put in about a 5-year process.
Okay. So you're counting 5 years, even though the Mountain Accord's only been around for about 1.5 years.
This group's been around the table since, I think, November of 20. Well, we can't hear the conversation at all.
Okay. He's saying this group, you're saying this group has been together since 2010. 2012. Okay, but not as the Mountain Accord. But the NEPA process, you're saying was started 3 years ago.
If you want to hand the mic, we'll respond. But without the mic,
Okay, well, I'll finish. One other thing I've talked about before is wildlife crossings. Is that included now? So, okay, great. Another thing I wanted to mention is I'm still not completely up to speed on this new 4.0 version. In the 3.0 version, you had in 3.17.4. If you could pull that up, please. Oh, wow. You did change it. You changed the word expected to encouraged. Wow. Thank you. Well, I guess all of our work is not over yet because we'll be keeping an eye on all of you and you'll be working hard and we will see you all again. Thank you.
I wanted to give my congratulations to the people who worked this. I've done deals as a living, and I know that this is much harder than doing deals in pure business sense. So I commend you for taking the Utah County lands off the table here. One of the reasons my name's Robert McFarland, by the way, but one of the reasons I've been involved and vocal in this process is that my family has had a 5-generation ranch downstream from a ski resort on the East Canyon Stream down in Morgan County. And over a course of 2 decades, we saw the water quality diminish significantly. And BioWest did a study and found that the point source pollution was primarily the ski resort, the canyons. And I've been a frequent visitor in American Fork Canyon, and up there on Miller Hill in that area is a beautiful area, and it's a watershed that's important to Utah County. And I just see the potential for degradation when you have intensive development in high alpine. And so I commend you for letting Utah County kind of take control and look at that holistically in that area and preserve the resources that are up there. The other thing that's unique about the canyon, that even when SkiLink was on the map, when you get down into Utah County, there's a diverse user group, and there's a passion there that is their place. That is, people love those mountains and they love that area, and it's a really important recreational resource for the county. And so I think it's important that you're letting Utah County kind of take the lead on that process. So I thank you very much. I know it's hard because you've kind of been on a course, so I appreciate you making a course correction. And thank you for your work.
Are there any other public comments? I wanted to make a comment to turn up the heat in the room. Could we do that? If you want to make a comment.
As much as I hate talking, my name is Susie Albertson. I live in Little Cottonwood Canyon, and like many of my neighbors, I'm a little disturbed. We weren't really included in this, and we certainly don't see anybody who represents us here. And the problem in the canyon, since we live there, we see it. The traffic problem in the canyon only happens a few hours, a few days a year, from 5 to 20 maximum. And to destroy the entire canyon with a possibly 200-foot wide footprint is ridiculous. And it will destroy that canyon, especially the lower part of the canyon that people use, and it is extremely popular for biking and hiking year-round. And destroy the historic neighborhood. And it is not acceptable. And the people aren't aware of it. Most people don't know anything about Mountain Accord, and they certainly don't know that the lands they love are possibly going to be destroyed forever. And when they find out, you'll see a major, major uprising, and I think it's going to give a black eye to the ski industry, which will be, you will be defeating what you're trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you to the members of the public for your input. I think we'll now come back to the executive committee for any further discussion, and then we'll take a vote on the accord as drafted. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion that we endorse the accord with all of its, we talked about the many sides of the table, not just both sides of the table, but the 18 sides of this table. Entertain a motion that we endorse the accord for signature. Is that a motion?
I'll make it.
A motion,
As amended.
Yeah, as amended. Moved and seconded. Any discussion for that motion? I'm out of time.
Sorry, I forgot to turn it off. Clarification what the amendments, just ones we've talked about here. The ones that came up.
I think, yeah.
Well, and also maybe that recognizing there are going to be some technical refinements. I think some of those were discussed today, and those would be reflected in final.
I think that even goes to your motion about continued collaboration. I think that's the intent of the language, and if we want to include something explicit along those lines, I think that would be with the intent of what we're adopting today. A technical clarification, if we can find the right language that keeps us within our bounds, but recognizes that gesture that we look to continued collaboration with our partners in Utah County. So it's been moved and seconded. Seeing no further discussion, any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So the motion is that we concur. Congratulations, Lainey. The next step on the agenda then is we've talked about an event to sign the accord that would include members of the executive committee. I think we've also discussed that signing event may include other parties who would wish to sign it ceremonially to sign the accord. I've invited members of Salt Lake County Council, many of whom are interested in coming and signing the accord, and others who may be interested in showing. We'd love to have the support from many of the members of the public and other stakeholder groups who would love to come and show their support for moving forward with this process as we begin phase 2. So do you want to lead us through, do we have a date on the signing event?
We actually, as of right now, do not have a date on the signing event. However, we are contemplating a location in the canyons, an outdoor event, and we're looking for a date in the next 3 weeks. We're just having trouble coordinating schedules. So that will be scheduled very soon. And the goal would be to have it in the next 2 weeks if possible. So that's it on the signing event.
Look for a date.
Yeah, look for a date.
Want to go with next steps now?
Sure. So on the next steps, just so that we're wrapping up, after the signing event, we are preparing a request for proposals to secure the technical help that we'll need to deliver all the commitments we made in the accord. So that will be the subject of our next discussion. And then of course it'll be in the federal agency's hands if they so choose to initiate the NEPA process. We are looking to immediately begin the environmental scorecard, so that is an action that we'll be undertaking immediately. And before we adjourn, I would like to take a few moments to thank our technical consultants that have gotten us this far in the process, if I could do so. So anybody that's participated on the parametrics team, if you could take a minute to stand up. And we'd like a round of applause. I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to that team. They spent some many 2 in the morning nights preparing for those system group meetings. And so I can't thank you all enough. Reed Perzing, Annalisa, Jeff Heilman, Andrea Clayton, and John Nepstead, Claire Woodman. Thank you all very much.
I would also, I think it's worth thanking the literally hundreds of members of the public who who participated. It wasn't just showing up at public hearings, but especially those members of the public who showed up at the 4 system group meetings and put in hundreds and hundreds of hours working through proposals, working through data to bring forward the proposal that is reflected in this accord. So to those members of the public who were not compensated for the hundreds of hours they put into this, our heartfelt gratitude on behalf of the executive committee. And then the salary goes down from there. The co-chairs of the system groups, who also got paid nothing and put in even more time co-chairing these 4 system groups, with the many hours they put in. They not only put in hundreds of hours, they also got sworn at and did some swearing, right? So thank you to the co-chairs of the system groups. Many of them are here today. If they're here, maybe they could stand. Some of them are not here, but thank you for your service as well. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.